Welcome to the Alternative Healers Coffee Chat. My name is Janel Mulligan. So this week's episode is A, late, sorry, not sorry, and I'll explain why shortly. B, going to be very different than normal. I really enjoy interviewing all these healers of different modalities and opportunities that we don't necessarily see or think as of healing, yet their time and interaction with the world, with the people they help in the smallest and largest of ways, are things that can change people's lives in the biggest of ways with the smallest action sometimes. However, the reason this episode is late and the reason why I'm alone is I was traveling in Ireland for the last 2 weeks. And I knew I didn't have an episode pre-recorded and prepped and ready to go. And it stressed me out. And so for those of you who know astrology, I'm a Capricorn sun, a Capricorn rising, Capricorn Mercury. So structure and steadiness and expectations are very important to me. And I learned this trip was meant to teach me more than I could ever dream, and it did. So that is what I realized. The universe was challenging me in holding back and waiting till this trip was over to figure out how I was going to handle this missed episode. I have a best friend who is a master Reiki practitioner who was on the trip that offered for me to interview her. I was on the trip with many other beautiful souls and healers that I could have asked to pull aside and figured out how to jerry rig and post it, even though it wouldn't have been up to my normal standards. And I decided not to. And now, like I said, I know why. I believe this episode was meant to be about the healing power of traveling, exploration, and going outside your comfort zones. The reason I feel this way is this trip to Ireland opened doors, windows, information to myself that I never dreamed possible. So one of the things I'd like to do this episode is go through all the healing things that can happen when you step outside your normal realm, be it comfort zone, be it country, city, state, country, whatever it looks like. So before I go any further, I do want to put a disclaimer or clear up something that may trigger or hook some people. I know traveling, especially international traveling, is not accessible for most, or for a lot of people, at least not yet. And I'm 50 years old. This is the first time I have ever gone to Europe. I'm almost 50, aging myself. But will be 50 in January. And I've never been to Europe. This was my first trip. I've traveled very little, effectively for the length of my life. And so I really thought a trip to Ireland would be a once in a lifetime event. And now I know better. And so as you listen to this episode and listen to me talk about the ways this trip is healed, and I believe healing can be found for people when you explore people and places that you have not previously done, that you keep in mind it's all in perspective. And traveling can be going to an area of your city that inspires you and you've never been before. It can be taking a walk and looking at a tree in a different way. It can be going to Ireland or to a country that draws and calls you. And I have wanted to go to Ireland my entire life. I have ancestry, both in Ireland and many places in Europe, but Ireland and Slovakia are my two main ancestral points. And now I don't think there will be anything that can hold me back from traveling from this point on. And that's part of what this trip opened up to. It gave me a sense of confidence and comfort that I never expected I would see, especially not in a trip like this. And maybe because Ireland is part of my ancestry, I've never felt more at home, not even my own home, not even in the States I grew up, not even in the country I currently live. I'm usually a very hypervigilant person. My nervous system is very stressed out. And while I was in Ireland, even though I was walking around big cities and small country towns that I had never been, my hypervigilance was so low. It was probably the lowest it has ever been, especially being in a place that I had never been. And I didn't know that was possible. I didn't know it was possible to feel at home in a place I had never been. And as I have shared with some, all of my life, there's been part of me saying, I want to go home. Now, I also recognize that even if I were to move to Ireland, there's a part of me that would still say that. And that is because I do believe in the concept that our souls can originate elsewhere, not just here on Earth. I believe in reincarnation. I believe in multi-dimensions. I believe in the expansion and change of our vibrations and our opportunities. And that is one of the things that this trip has confirmed for me, or helped solidify these beliefs a little more. And I met beautiful, gorgeous souls that believe in similar things and different things. And they help expand me. And they helped give me a different perspective that just makes me want to learn more, wants me to expand more, fires up my curiosity for life and for things I have never considered. And that's one of the beautiful things, is stepping out and looking at things from a different lens and different perspective. One of the things I always talk about with clients, to friends, is perspective. No matter what the situation, no matter where we are only looking at things from our own lens, our own tunnel vision, our own expectations, our own narrative. It is a very, very challenging thing to look at it truly and clearly from another person's perspective. And honestly, it's impossible. The reason that is impossible, and I don't use absolutes easily, is that their narrative, their perspective, their lenses on life are framed from the day they were born, from the people they interacted with the cultural aspects, with the interactions, the schools they went to, the teachers they had. We are, each and every one of us, formed and informed very differently. So it is close to impossible for any one of us to know exactly what is going on and how another person is seeing a certain situation. And being able to meet people and learn from them allows you to get a broader perspective than you would have otherwise. So that is one of the most healing things I have found in traveling. My ADD has kicked in. I had taken notes so that I wouldn't stray from my narrative. And in trying to bring up the notes, I went ADD on myself and was like, where did I just end? So that had to do with perspective. However, I'll use that as a transition, that perception and perspective and life can switch as quickly as the ophthalmologist clicks those little lenses to see how good your vision is. Me just taking that break to bring up my notes totally had me lose concentration and focus and where I was going with that train of thought. So hopefully, if I don't totally cut this video out, which I may or may not, I will continue without losing you too badly. So one of the things I did speak about is being hypervigilant, being able to explore Ireland with a lack of hypervigilance that I never experienced. And I think that is in part due to my experiences over the last few years of embracing my connections with myself, my confidence in myself, my spirituality. And while I've been doing this process a lot, so it appears my ADD has kicked in. I had taken notes so that I wouldn't stray from my narrative. And in trying to bring up the notes, I went ADD on myself and was like, where did I just end? So that had to do with perspective. However, I'll use that as a transition, that perception and perspective and life can switch as quickly as the ophthalmologist clicks those little lenses to see how good your vision is. Me just taking that break to bring out my notes. Totally had me lose concentration and focus and where I was going with that train of thought. So hopefully, if I don't totally cut this video out, which I may or may not, I will continue without losing you too badly. So one of the things I did speak about is being hypervigilant, being able to explore Ireland with a lack of hypervigilance that I never experienced. And I think that is in part due to my experiences over the last few years of embracing my connections with myself, my confidence in myself, my spirituality. And while I've been doing this process, a lot of past memories have come to mind where my psychic abilities, some people call your clair abilities, were apparent. And for one reason or another, I shut them down. Someone laughed at me or said, "Oh, isn't that cute?" when I told them about what occurred or shared my experience. Others I scared, or I scared myself. People told me I was crazy or making things up and imagining more that I was a freak. And therefore I told myself all of those things. The only ability I ever didn't shut down was my ability to read a room, to read people, because it is acceptable. Using it to protect myself and others physically was acceptable. So, as I learned more about hypervigilance, it's also a symptom of trauma. So once I learned that and I studied psychology, I realized, oh, I can just say this falls under part of being hypervigilant. As I learned more about hypervigilance, it's also a symptom of trauma. So once I learned that and I studied psychology, I realized, oh, I can just say this falls under part of being hypervigilant and trauma, dealing with trauma, having complex PTSD. However, I don't believe it's all one or the other. I think it's part of a spectrum. And yes, the ability to read a room or read people is in part from my trauma. It was a way to protect myself as I grew up. However, it's not needed in every situation, which is something I am learning and something this trip has taught me. And it's one of the things I'm doing to heal myself as well. It's changing my narrative on the things that I am proud of, on the things that I judged myself for. And now I'd like to also share some additional things that I learned on this trip. The trip started being part of a group trip with Emily Dexter and Crystal Lynn, Alchemist Inkwell, and it was part of their Forgotten Storytellers program and writing cohort. And as one of their alumni and writers, I went on this trip to further expand my abilities, to interact with other writers, and to explore a country I've always wanted to go to. However, when the trip started, I found that I had so much overstimulation and disassociation. And I learned that I need to give myself grace and time to find equilibrium with my energy when I'm in a group. Being able and giving yourself permission to tap into yourself, to step back and feel what you're feeling, whatever it is. If some would deem it good or bad, it's neither. It just is. You can feel how you feel. And you're allowed to take the time you need in any situation and say, this isn't serving me right now. I'm not showing up as my best self. And it's more of an and you can also say, I just need time to equalize. I need time to determine who and what I am in this group and with this energy and what energy I want to share with others and I get to share with others. And that was something I actually took me a little bit to do. But when I did, I finally felt like I was showing up authentically. I was showing up with a group of people, some of which were strangers to me, actually felt seen and felt heard and realized how often I masked, how much I failed to be honest with people because I wasn't being honest with myself. And so that's one of the things I hope everyone gets an opportunity to do. Again, be it in your own neighborhood, be it with a community group that you enjoy. Find a place where you give yourself grace to be yourself. The abilities I spoke about earlier, those abilities that I disregarded in myself, I shut down, ignored, pretended they couldn't be true because it would be all my imagination. I would be crazy if they were true, right? And I found during this trip, they routinely made appearances in various ways to ask me to explore them again, to play with them again. And it could be anything from mediumship to remote viewing to claircognizance, things that I just know that I shouldn't know. The abilities I spoke about earlier, those abilities that I disregarded in myself, I shut down, ignored, pretended they couldn't be true because it would be all my imagination. I would be crazy if they were true, right? And I found during this trip, they routinely made appearances in various ways to ask me to explore them again, to play with them again. And it could be anything from mediumship to remote viewing to claircognizance, things that I just know that I shouldn't know. Recognizing that my energy draws and repels what is both meant for me and how I can help others. And I knew this before, and this trip reminded me that when I explore new places, places I've never been, especially if I can be there for more than a few days, and it isn't all packed with activities and interactions, when I get to just be, those times help strengthen and, what's the word I'm looking for? Enliven, encourage, make louder those skills and abilities that are within me that I normally don't allow myself to listen to. And when I allow myself to hear, it allows me to lean into them and test them and play with them, my abilities, and trust myself in environments that aren't already skewed in ways of my own expectations or others. And so that's also part of the reason I want people, if you're listening to this, to step out of your comfort zones and explore a little further and allow yourself to listen to yourself. Listen to what you just know to be true in your heart, in your soul, in your gut, wherever it shows up. And since I'm encouraging that, let me give you an exercise that I have learned on my path to see if it helps you. If you don't know if you can trust yourself, and if you feel like, oh yeah, if I listen to that feeling in my chest, or listen to that feeling in my gut, or listen to that feeling in my body, that you have that ability to tap in, to listen to those sensations that come up. Here's an exercise for you. And others that don't think you can listen to your body, I want you to just try. Play with this for me. Think of something that you love. Ice cream, chocolate, a toy, your animals, best friend, your grandparent, your parent, things and people that just, when you think of them or it, makes your heart burst, makes you just feel safe and warm and right. Take a moment to sit and think of them and say, I love this thing, this person, and see where that feeling shows up in your body. Some people, it feels like an elevator kind of going up into their chest and up into their throat, maybe even up to their heads. Some people, it tingles. Some people's tingle in their hands, their feet. Listen to how it shows up in your body. Everybody shows up differently. Some people may get energy in their shoulders. See, when you say, I love person or thing, how does it feel? What are the sensations in your body? And so play with that. Play with a number of different things and then interchange it with I hate. Name things. No, actually, let me rephrase it. Then say I love and things you don't like. For me, anchovies. What else? What are things I really don't like? Bad energy. Anchovies, bad energy. What else don't I like? Abuse, verbal abuse, things that trigger me typically. And I say I love and put that negative thing, the thing that you know there's no chance in the world right now that you're going to be able to say I love. Say I love blank. See where that shows up in your body. Does it go down to your gut? Does it feel like all of a sudden your legs are getting heavy? Does it feel like your arms are getting heavy? Does it feel like there's a weight on your shoulders? See how when you say I love and put a negative thing, the thing you know you do not like, you will not eat, you would not touch for the life of you, at least right now, and see how that shows up in your body. So that's one skill or one test that I have learned in touching base with that. It helps me start working that into my daily life. So do I want to go to Sligo? Sligo is a part of things that trigger me typically. And I say I love and put that negative thing, the thing that you know there's no chance in the world right now that you're going to be able to say I love. Say I love blank. See where that shows up in your body. Does it go down to your gut? Does it feel like all of a sudden your legs are getting heavy? Does it feel like your arms are getting heavy? Does it feel like there's a weight on your shoulders? See how when you say I love and put a negative thing, the thing you know you do not like, you will not eat, you would not touch for the life of you, at least right now, and see how that shows up in your body. So that's one skill or one test that I have learned in touching base with that. It helps me start working that into my daily. That's one skill or one test that I have learned in touching base with that. It helps me start working that into my daily life. So do I want to go to Sligo? Sligo is a part of Ireland. It is a town and a county in the northern part of Ireland. It's not part of Northern Ireland itself. It's part of the Ireland Republic that I have ancestry with. And now when I think of that place, my heart, like my energy comes up into my heart. It feels like happiness. It feels like comfort. And I also know when I start thinking of doing something that doesn't resonate with my body, that I'm like, I know now because when I said I love and the thing I hate, where it shows up in my body. And your body typically warns you of the things that don't align with you and learning to trust yourself in that way. And that's part of our own abilities. That's part of our intuition. It's part of our security and safety. So what I would recommend or encourage people to do is start using that in your daily life. And as you're roaming around your own neighborhood or town or city and go to explore somebody new, what I would recommend or encourage people to do is start using that in your daily life. And as you're roaming around your own neighborhood or town or city and go to explore somebody new, somewhere new, see how it feels in your body first. If it feels good, do it. You may see a beautiful view you've never seen. You may meet somebody you never expected to meet, make a new friend. But it will help you learn that exploration and adventure can show up anywhere. And slowly, as you step into your knowledge of that, I hope for you, and I hope for yourself, you start trusting that those things that you want to come true, those places that you want to go, are possible. Because if you could step out into that part of the city you've never been and it feels good, then what's next? Where is next? And like I said, you might meet somebody you never expected to meet. That's one of the most healing things on this journey, on my trip to Ireland, that happened for me. For the first part of the trip, I mentioned I was with a group. So I was with a group of 17 other gorgeous souls. And over half of them were people I didn't know. And I've made new friends. I've made people that I now feel like I can show up authentically with. And I'm so blessed for that. Second half of the trip was my best friend and I continued, and we stayed in Dublin. We then went to Sligo. I went to Donegal and got a tattoo, which I will put a picture up on my uh, YouTube site. It's gorgeous. So excited. And I met people throughout this trip that opened my heart and my mind in ways I didn't know possible. It gave me hope for my future, that there are people out there like this that will enrich my life, that will help show me things in myself that I need to work on, places that I want and need to grow, skills I want and need to grow. I mentioned the mediumship and remote viewing are skills that I want to tap back into that I had when I was younger. I had conversations with people who showed me that there's more out there. They live life so differently than I have. And it helped expand my box. It helped expand what I hoped for myself and learned thought possible. And it's allowed me to look at life with more curiosity. And for that, I'm forever grateful to them. I am forever grateful to every person that I interacted with on this trip for the short conversations and the long conversations. And I still, being a fairly verbose person, still don't feel like that can adequately find the words to share, to explain what I experienced. And like I said, that was the last thing I expected from this trip. I expected to go wander around, get some beautiful pictures, have a nice time, say I went to Ireland, and come home and start my life again. And I now am realizing my life is just starting. My life and my chapters are just starting. And I will say coming home very unexpectedly was one of the hardest things I've done in a while. Personally, I've had some interpersonal challenges in the last 6 months. And I've known I haven't known home for a while. However, after this, I want to explore. I want to allow myself to grieve. And I guess that's where a lot of the healing is going to actually come into, is recognizing the things that I now know I have missed, the things I didn't think were possible that I now know are, the expansion of my heart and mind in this process, and grieving that it wasn't expanded earlier and sooner, the recognition and understanding that as a person who believes in reincarnation, in multi-dimensions and planes of existence that are seen and unseen by us humans in these meet X, that I have been sheltered in many ways, scared to open my eyes in many ways, and that our connections really never die, in my perspective. And meeting people in a whole different country that felt so familiar, that I know is from this life, maybe from my ancestry, my DNA, it may be from my past lives or my guides' lives, but meeting people that felt so familiar and so safe surprised me and makes me wonder how many more are out there. Thank you for listening to the Alternative Healers Coffee Chat. Please like, share, and subscribe.